now. Karl, Super Tuesday, you've been through a lot of them. What are your thoughts on this one?
Strong night for Donald Trump. We've got the big enchiladas yet to come in the form of Texas and California. But I wouldn't be surprised if, given what he's doing in the rest of the country, he didn't take California, where if you get 50% plus one, you take all of the delegates. So a very good night for him. And it's in all likelihood his campaign's projection that they're going to win a majority of the delegates by either by later in the month, the 19th at the latest, is probably accurate. Having said that, the high command of Team Trump ought to be concerned about unifying the Republican Party, because as we see in the in these states, a third of the vote in Virginia, 43% of the vote in Massachusetts going to Nikki Haley, a quarter of the vote in North Carolina. Maine has now dropped down to about a quarter of the vote, but it was 31% for Nikki Haley. Vermont, 48%. There's still some work to be done to unify the Republican Party, and that's going to depend a lot on his tone tonight and whether or not he stops doing things like calling her bird brain and threatening that if you give money to her campaign, you're going to be permanently banned. We'll see how he does tonight. He did well in Iowa with his victory statement, unifying, humble, gracious. Not so good in New Hampshire, and tonight is going to be the big night, and he's going to set an important tone for either a unified Republican Party or a divided Republican Party.
Yeah, Karl, I remember the night that Ron DeSantis dropped out and he endorsed former President Trump, and quickly. I spoke with the former president that night in New Hampshire, and he said, well, you know what, I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad for the endorsement. Can you mend fences? Yeah, probably. We all see a lot of very dirty political language that flies around, and it's maybe more so now than it ever has been in the past. But what do you think he needs to do to unify the party besides, giving a nice speech? I mean, literally in terms of where he goes and who he says he will work with. How does that look?
Yeah. Well, first of all, stop the bad language, because you're right. Ron DeSantis offered him his endorsement. President Trump had kind words to say for him. Then there was a leaked report of supposedly DeSantis off the record saying things in a private meeting that were disparaging of the former president. And the president's co-campaign manager, a terrific guy, a personal friend of mine, went out and said, all we're going to remember about Governor DeSantis is chicken fingers and pudding lips. And that's just not the way to go about doing it. J.D. Vance, one of the former president's big surrogates, put out a statement saying, if you are not being supportive of Trump and the candidates he endorses, don't bother showing up on my doorstep and asking me to help you on legislation. I have a long memory. Well, that's the kind of thuggish thing that most politicians, even if they believe in keeping enemies lists, they don't go out and say it in a tweet. And yet that was one of the former president's strong supporters, the junior senator from Ohio. That stuff has got to stop. The presidential candidate sets the tone, for good or for ill. It's up to him to be the one who's gracious, who's the adult, who does everything he can to unify, because in 2020, 1 out of every 10 Republicans broke for Joe Biden, and Donald Trump lost by 7 million votes. If 20% or 15% or 12% of Republicans break, that's not going to be helpful to him in the fall. So he's got to set the tone, and the best way to do that is to start out tonight.
Karl, really quickly, this is a primary. There's still opponent here. There's a candidate in the race. When you get to a general election, obviously, there are two candidates, and it's a choice. And in independents, President Biden is down on helping the working class, improving the U.S. world image, handling the economy, making U.S. safer, improving border security, unifying the country. I'm not talking just down. He is upside down by about 3/4, 75 to 20. Do you mean to tell me that all of those voters are saying that they're not going to come home, even though this is a primary? You don't think those Republicans are going to come home and vote either for President Trump, but they're not going to vote for President Biden?
Probably not. But remember, in 2020, the Libertarian votes in Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin, Joe Jorgensen, the nominee of the Libertarians, got more votes than Donald Trump lost by. So the best thing to do is bring everybody home and bring them home earlier rather than later. And the way that you do that is by setting a tone and following it consistently through the balance of the spring and into the fall and into the convention. And look, it's not easy. Having been through this, I mean, there were a lot of hurt feelings in 2000 on the John McCain side. And it's hard to do, but you got to do it if you want to win.
Karl Rove, as always, thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.